This video is about quitting your job, and the title of this video is You Should Quit Your Job. Now, obviously, it's not clear cut, and you shouldn't quit your job if you have obligations and bills to pay and everything. And I think this video, probably more likely than not, younger people are going to be watching this. But, if you're older like me, I'm 31, then, that the older you get, obviously, the more responsibilities you get. You kind of really just can't put it off. You're going to get responsibilities. And so, yeah, like I said, you shouldn't quit your job if you do have responsibilities and everything. But really quickly, to keep you watching this video, like, what the hell are you going to even get out of this video? I quit my job twice. And so I've had the experience of leaving my job, well, actually 3 times technically. And I just kind of want to share some of my experiences and lessons that I've learned and things that maybe you don't need to go through and experience on your own, because, it's been pretty bad, but it's been pretty good. There's pros and cons for everything. If you studied economics like I did, you know about trade-offs very well and everything. Most people should know about trade-offs. You don't really need to have an economics degree to know about that. But I just want to share the story. Maybe you could learn a few things. Maybe you're in a situation right now where you feel like you would like to be a content creator or a business owner or whatever, and you want to quit your job. So this can potentially help with that. But, hold on, wait 1 second. The first thing that I wanted to say, so I decided to go for a walk today. People always get so weird with cameras. People like to watch people with cameras and everything. It's really funny. But I decided to go for a walk today because, I didn't want to be in the office. The office that I rent, it's a little executive suite, and it's kind of like in a room where there's no windows. So I just like to go get some fresh air and stuff. But if you have responsibilities and bills to pay, you should get a job, or you should keep your job and everything. But you should consider quitting your job. Like, one of the worst situations that you could be in is where you're not getting exposed to new skills or any form of skill development or just development in general. And from my experience working I've worked at Airbnb, so I worked in tech in San Francisco, and then I also worked for a bank in Sacramento, and I held some other jobs. But I've seen a lot of people really just get stuck in their positions, and their whole advancement in life was dictated by a single person, a boss or whatever it was, or whoever it was, but somebody else controlled whether or not they were going to advance in life. The thing about this neighborhood by my office is that people are here, they're pretty active, but I'm going to try not to get distracted with people and try to really focus on this video. But either way, teams in companies and everything, they operate like a system. They're like a machine, and every job, every function in a company or on a team has a role. And from my experience, they need you to do a job, and most jobs really aren't that hard. They don't require you to be super intelligent or anything. It's really just a lot of monotony. Most of these corporate jobs, a lot of monotony. And they just need you to do, you're a cog in the wheel. They just need you to do your function. Just get it done. They're not thinking about, nobody really is thinking about your life, your aspirations, and how you can get more out of this experience that you have here on this planet. And so really, that is up to you. You have to be the one to prioritize that, because nobody else is going to prioritize that for you. Now, there probably are some people who have phenomenal bosses that do help with that, and that's amazing. That's a blessing for those people, but that's very rare. That's a belief that I have. I believe that's very rare. I've had a really good boss. Most of my bosses were really good. They inspired me and all that stuff, but obviously, they have their own life to worry about, their own things to prioritize, and prioritize their own career and aspirations and everything. So, even if people aren't bad people, it's still not their job. It's still your job, and you still have to prioritize that. But if you're in a situation right now where you feel like you are just used as a cog to keep the machine going, the corporate machine going, then you might consider trying to get a different job. I think there is a stat where people who get people who quit their jobs and try to get, like, people have an easier time getting promotions and an increase in their wage when they quit their jobs. And it's a really sad thing. You know, I know that there are some people that think that if they're loyal to a company, if they build their relationships with everybody and stuff, that they'll be rewarded for it. And I just think that the evidence doesn't really suggest that. And again, in some of those articles and on the news and everything, the evidence showed that people who quit their jobs to find better jobs or the next position up, they had a better chance of getting that promotion and increasing their wage. But the thing is that if you're looking for a job right now, or if you're in a job right now and you're not feeling, that's probably why you're watching this video. You're thinking that, you probably see all the gurus talking about being a business owner is the only way to freedom and all this stuff. And yes, there is a bit of truth to that. The truth is that if you don't own the thing, then you don't really have freedom, Like, there's always going to be boundaries. There's always going to be restrictions and everything. But when somebody else owns the stream of income, which the company or the corporation that you work for, it's the salespeople. They are the ones that have access to that income flow. And then you help with that. You have a role and you help the company, and they could determine whether or not you get any sort of, like, how much of that income flow do you get, which is your check and everything. And then they could just take that away from you whenever the heck they want, Hold on, wait, I'm going to skip through this real fast. Okay, so the reasons why the gurus say being a business owner, which I feel like most people want to be a business owner because they want to own the income, they want to own the entire machine. The thing that sucks about that is that obviously ownership, when you own a house, when you own a car, when you own anything, you're responsible for everything. And if you have experience owning anything, you realize that so many things could go wrong. And then you're the person that the thing looks to. If you don't fix it, nobody else is going to fix it. So that, there's a lot of responsibilities that come with it. But of course, with the responsibility and the risk is the reward. So either way, I wanted to talk about how, just a second, I have so many parts in this video I'm going to have to skip. So the first job that I ever quit. So I'm going to talk about the first time I ever quit my job. When I was young, I aged out of the foster care system, so I had to grow up pretty fast. I got a full-time job right when I turned 18 at this optics shop, and this was back in 2011. And I think I was getting paid, I don't know, I think it was $18 or $20 an hour, which was a lot of money for a fresh 18-year-old back in 2011. I was really fortunate with this job. I had friends that helped me get the job. And so I was working full-time, but then I was also going to school at a community college full-time. And my goal, obviously, was to go to university and get a 4-year degree. And so there was a time where, there were times where I had to take off work early so that I could go to a study group and focus on my education. But things got really bad, real bad, because a lot of the people that worked at this company were older. They're full-on adults. They were working for this company for a long time, and they had plans of retiring with this company. And I think that a lot of them, they came from like the old way of living. And it was me, and then there was like another person. There were a couple other young people that got hired at the same time that I got hired. And the way they kind of looked at us was that, we were going to follow in their footsteps. And I think this is the thing. This is one of the weird things about having coworkers or working around other human beings, is that a lot of people, they have chosen a life path, and they really want to get the other people, the younger people, to follow their life path, a similar life path. I think that when people see that you're doing things differently, maybe you're more bold, you're taking more risks or whatever, it kind of makes them feel some kind of way, maybe they don't feel so good about themselves and the decisions that they made because they didn't have the courage like you. And so either way, they couldn't understand. Out of all of the young people, I was the only one going to school. There was another one who was going to school, but she stopped to focus full-time on the job. And A lot of the adults, a lot of the coworkers kind of got weird about me being in school. It was really bizarre. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what? These people, they don't understand the importance of going to school and trying to build skills and better your life. And it just felt really awkward the days where I was like, hey, I might not be able to, or I'm not going to be able to come into work next week. Would I be able to take this day off? And then they're like, and it wasn't like I was taking the priorities and the responsibilities that I had at the job and put it on other people. I usually planned out ahead of time all of my work to make sure, you know, when you have responsibilities, you got to handle the responsibilities. And so I always made sure my responsibilities were handled. But even then, people got weird. And I got this sense that people just didn't like the fact that I was prioritizing my education. So I quit. You know, I had to quit. And funny enough, when I quit, a couple of years down the road, one of the managers reached back out to me, and they were trying to hire me back and stuff. Obviously, I couldn't because I transferred to a university. But either way, that situation, I was a young person at the time. The adults, they made it so uncomfortable. Like, it was so, they made it seem like it was weird that I wanted to quit and everything. And it's like, dude, that is so weird. And that's one of the things that I encountered, which maybe some of you might encounter, is that people in this world, they will leverage that feeling of awkwardness they'll try to make things weird if you aren't doing what they want you to do, even if everybody knows that this is the best thing that you can do. You know, like, people don't care. They're not going to prioritize the things that are best for you. They're going to prioritize the things that are best for them. And even if you had your ducks in a row, you did everything maturely, you communicated, you handled your responsibilities, and you let everybody know with the proper time that they needed, you know, putting in your 2 weeks notice and everything, or even a month's notice. Like, you're just really cooperative. Even then, people will try to make you uncomfortable, because the process of hiring people, the process of finding another person to handle your responsibility, it's a pain in the butt. Companies don't like to deal with this and everything, and so people just become really complacent. Systems are in place, and they're like, okay, everything's working fine right now, and I want it to keep it that way. And you wanting to do something else, wanting to go to school or change up your life or whatever, that affects that stable system. And it's like, okay, that's a headache. Now we're going to have to find another person and train them and everything. And so that's the thing, is that people, they want to train you on something, and then they want you to just stay there and do that job forever. It's like, we found a person, they could do this thing, whether it's spreadsheets or document analysis, whatever it may be, you know, just some boring, dumb, old, monotonous job. If they find you, they train you to do that, and you're doing it well, they just want to keep you doing that, because it's a lot harder to find. Sorry, I'm getting really distracted. Maybe going for a walk was not the best idea. But they found you, they trained you, and it's working perfectly. You know, they don't want to have to stop and find another person to do that same job. They would, if they could have it their way, you would just be sitting there doing that job for eternity until they die or retire and everything. You know, it's a lot harder to find a person and train them and do all that stuff again. So they're really okay with keeping you in a monotonous job where you're not learning any new skills and you're just not developing as a person. You're not going to build up those skills to be able to really take on some of the other things in this world that have higher rewards. This video is going to be a really long time. I feel like this is a really bad video. The goal with this channel is to make raw, unedited videos where we just talk about topics about life, things that could help people out and everything, and share some of my experiences that, you know, have some learnings behind them that maybe could help other people and everything. And so, you know, it's Saturday and I'm out in a neighborhood right now, and so there's a lot of stuff going on. But either way, getting back to the point of the video, is that either you have to fight to take some responsibilities in a job that you're in, or you have to leave and go to a job and work with people that are going to help you get in those situations where you can take on more responsibilities and develop yourself, develop the skills, so that ever in the future, when you want to run a business or you want to start at least managing a team or whatever, you're going to need to have those skills. And the point of the video is that should you quit your job, or you should quit your job. So you should quit your job if you're, like I said earlier, if you're not getting access to these responsibilities, or you're not getting the opportunities to develop your skills or to develop yourself. And if you have the responsibilities and you have the money, you have a bunch of bills that you have to pay, either you should work to reduce those bills, put yourself in a scenario where you don't have to accept a job that's not leading to anywhere, and start building to be able to get yourself in a situation where you are getting the most out of your labor. And I think for most people, the reason why entrepreneurship is the way to get the most out of your labor is because it's nobody else is getting a piece of that income, and you're deciding who is getting a piece of that income. So if you're hearing this video right now, I really appreciate you for being here. I feel like I've been all over the place, and maybe the video has become a little bit too distracting with a lot of the things that are going on in the neighborhood. But yeah, this video I feel like is going to be really bad. But I'm going to try to post it anyways. There's a dog barking. The thing I want to say is that the ideal scenario, when you are thinking about what to do with your life, and you're thinking about, money and all the stuff that we think about, most human beings think about, the people who probably have the best situations right now are the people who work on the boards of companies. And so these are like the chairman and the president of a company. They're not the CEO. Being a CEO of a company is a really difficult job. You have a lot of responsibilities, and if you're a CEO, you can only be a CEO for one company. But as far as being a chairman or being a vice chairman or any board position, you could be on several board positions. And the idea is these people that are in the best scenarios or in the best positions, they have ownership in all of these companies. So if you look at the people at big companies like Facebook, Yelp, Uber, all these other companies, a lot of the people that are on the board of one company are like, they're a CEO of one company, or they're either a CEO of one company or they're a president for one company. They're on the boards for several other companies. And so they have ownership over multiple companies, and they get paid in dividends and all this stuff. And so that's like the best scenario any human being can be in, is where they have ownership of a machine. A corporation, a company is just a machine with workers in that machine that are doing things to produce income. They are making money. Now, having ownership of part of that without having to be a cog in that machine is the ideal scenario. And it's one of the reasons why it's one of the reasons why, I'm not hating on that guy, I just kind of made a bad choice to make this video out in in the neighborhood where I'd easily get distracted. But the ideal scenario is to have ownership of these income streams where you can continually get a chunk out of these income streams. And at least for me, that's my aspiration. My goal is to have ownership over companies, these forms of income streams that I, obviously with products and services that I stand by and I believe in. And yeah. And so I feel like this is what most people are aiming to be. A lot of people, they want to be lawyers, doctors. They hear the propaganda of the standard paths of wealth and everything. And, you end up getting stuck in a situation where you have huge student loans and you are capped out at around maybe like a mid six figures, $500,000 a year. And it's not easy work, being a doctor, being a lawyer, it's really tough work. And that's all you have. And again, the ideal scenario for wealth is to have ownership over multiple income streams. And anybody can figure this out. You go and you look. Go look at the corporate documents of these companies. Go look at the people who are on these boards and how many different boards they're on and what they're doing. A lot of the times they're just in meetings and stuff, and they are helping guide CEOs, and they're more of like in a consulting like role, but they own the damn thing, and they reap the benefits of the company and the money that the people in the company are generating. And so I think the point of this video is, should you quit your job? And yes and no. You should quit your job if you're not getting challenged and you're not building skills, and obviously if you're not being valued at what you should be valued as. But you know, this video has gone all over the place. I feel like it's a really bad video. Some of my other videos are a little bit more coherent. They're more cohesive, and yeah, this one it seems like a bad one. The point of what I'm saying is that try to get the skills, try to get the ownership. You need to have ownership. You need to be the one that has some form of ownership. If you don't have ownership, then somebody owns you, and they own your labor. And a lot of people wish that that companies and people are just going to all of a sudden say, yes, you're a worker here, we're going to give you ownership. Nobody's just going to toss you ownership. You have to take ownership. So you either start a company or find some way to have ownership. That's why a lot of people like to get into content creation, because you can make deals with people, with companies, where you get partial ownership for advertising their service or product or whatever. But the idea is to have ownership. And I quit my job many times. And the biggest reasons why I quit my jobs, like quitting Airbnb and quitting working at the bank that I was working at, was simply because the amount of work, like the work was uninspired. I didn't have the motivation or like that drive to do phenomenal work, because it was just dumb, stupid, boring stuff, you know, like working for a bank. Like, okay, we're managing people's money and everything, and there's like this whole hierarchy and this political game that you have to play that will determine whether or not you're gonna, you know, move up in your career or have an opportunity to have ownership in that company. So I think for me, when I was younger, I just wanted to be able to put myself in a position where I could really focus on working more, rather than being around a lot of these people that, a lot of them were older, and they were just really complacent, going to meetings, and it was pretty much just get the job done. That's it. That's how most of the people behaved at the jobs that I had, and I really didn't like it. And I thought, you know what the hell, why don't I just reduce the amount of liabilities and responsibilities that I have. Let me live really frugally, and let me try to build something that I could actually own. And so this is not advice, this is not financial advice or anything, but this is more just a conversation to people out there who are even listening, who are even here right now, to think about and meditate on the idea of what you should do next. You know, I do believe for every human being who can do this, and every human being who's aware of this, the goal is to own. Find a way to own stuff, and then use that ownership. You need to get leverage. Find a way to get leverage. The reason why certain content creators, influencers, and people have leverage is because they have eyeballs. They have people's attention. And companies and business people, they want those people's attention. So that's leverage. You have something that people want. And it's the sad truth that we live in. You need to have something that people want. And that's what we're going for. We're going to have ownership and leverage. If you don't have leverage, if you are one of those dumb people who decided, you know, I want to live life good now, so I want to have a paycheck. Like, because for me, I could have been stuck at that optic shop making $20 an hour, which was good for the time. I was making a lot of money when I was younger, at least relative to a lot of my friends who didn't start working. They just focused on school entirely. I had money. I had a really nice car. I was driving an Audi, and I had money, and I wasn't struggling at all. I was able to pay my bills. I had my own apartment, and I had a lot of money to just go and spend with. And you know, you can decide to keep that job and say, I'm getting a paycheck right now, I'm getting money, I can save this money, and I can imagine retiring later in life. But the thing that nobody tells you is that that job is not going to be there for you forever. You know, the company can go under, and then you would only have that skill. And there's just so many different avenues where you could get trapped. And there's only one avenue where you won't get trapped. And that avenue is where you have skills that people can't give up, where you have ownership over things that people can't take away from you. So if you have attention, you have people on the platform, on your website, on your social media accounts, and you have their email lists or whatever, or if you have skills like being able to develop relationships, being able to market products, being able to create messaging for a product and sell a product, being able to develop stories, being able to craft a story and present that story to people, being able to communicate effectively. All of these soft skills and being able to connect to other humans is probably the most important skill, because no matter what changes, if you can connect to people and connect and communicate to people and develop messaging and stories, I don't feel like you're ever going to be in a bad situation. And so you use all these schools and tools to get leverage and to get ownership. So that's what the goal is. And you should quit your job if it's not helping you get there. You should keep your job until you get yourself into a situation where you can get ownership or gain some form of leverage. But if you're just stuck, you should find a way to decrease your costs so you can get a job that's not so demanding. Either your job is helping grow you. If it's not, get a job that's not so demanding so that you can start delegating more of your time to building stuff. Remember, we all have this life once, as far as we know. And I don't think anybody wants to look back and say, oh, all I did my entire life was just work this really dumb, monotonous job, and I did it because I was afraid I wasn't going to have money. I did it because I was afraid that I wasn't going to get paid. And then you look back and you have nothing. Whereas there are some people out here that have the courage to create videos, to create music, to create something, to build companies, to do these things. And when you look back at it, whether you failed or not, it's like, I did that, Like, I did that. That was my thing. And I did that with these people. We built that. We made that. We made this happen. And I'm proud of it. And that's the gamble that I'm making. I'd rather look back at the things that I did and be proud of it, and rather than just having the paycheck and being some disposable, replaceable pencil pusher. But that's it for this video. This was a tough video. This is probably a hard watch. People are probably not going to watch this video, but if you did watch this video and you appreciate it, I appreciate you. And if you like more content like this that is raw and unedited, consider subscribing. Leave a comment about your experience. Obviously this wasn't comprehensive, so there's a lot that I missed. I definitely didn't articulate myself well in this video, but give it a like if you like the video. It really helps in the algorithm, and I hope you take care. Bye.